The next chapter it is charge of GST. Charge of GST, levy of GST. Amendment number 1. Taxes on services supplied by a director of a company in his personal capacity, such as renting of immobile property to the company or body corporate, not payable under reverse charge mechanism. And the next chapter it is charge of GST. Charge of GST. Right. As we know that where a director rendering services to the company or body corporate, where a director rendering services to the company or body corporate, reverse charge mechanism applicable, right? Recipient, company is liable for payment of GST. Liable to pay GST, right? This is 9 subsection 3. Any doubt? Right, this is the provision which we discussed in classroom. Now the director, where a director rendering directorship services to the company, that is as a director, when he is rendering services to the company, then only reverse charge mechanism applicable. Suppose take an example, this director have a immovable property. Suppose, land or building, right? Such land or building given on rental basis to the company. On rental basis. In this situation, director will become supplier, right? Company will become recipient. Whether these services will be covered under reverse charge mechanism, whether these services, land and building delivered or made available on rental basis, whether this is covered under the reverse charge mechanism? No. So not taxable under reverse charge mechanism. This is the new clarification. So as the director, where a director rendering services to the company or body corporate in professional capacity, then only reverse charge mechanism applicable. Company or body corporate is liable for payment of GST. Where a director rendering services to the company other than directorship services, like this land and building given on rental basis, or any immovable property has been delivered, or any other services rendered, might be like as an insurance agent or any other professional services in relating to those services, in relating to the other than directorship services, RCM not applicable. Only for directorship services, RCM applicable, right? So this is the first amendment in the chapter of charge of GST. All right, and the second one, amendment in the list of notified services tax on which payable, that is GST is payable under the reverse charge by the recipient. Okay, so the second one, it is tax on passenger transportation services by omnibus, except where the person supplying such services through e-commerce operator is a company, right? In such a situation, it is payable by the e-commerce operator with effective from 20th October 2023. This is the new amendment. Actually, as we know that services provided by radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle, omnibus, or any other motor vehicle, when these services are provided through e-commerce operator is liable for payment of GST. Are you clear? Second, services of transportation of passenger. Transportation of passenger by motor vehicle, maxi cab, and motorcycle, motor vehicle, maxi cab, including omnibus. What is the meaning of the omnibus? Omnibus is a vehicle which is constructed to transport the passenger more than 6. that is excluding driver. Excluding driver, if you have a seating capacity of 6, right? Suppose where a vehicle having seating capacity of 6, more than 6 passengers, excluding driver, that is called maxi cab. Okay, so when these services are provided through e-commerce operator, right, these people are the customers or public. Now, as per 9 subsection 5, e-commerce operator is liable to pay GST. Are you clear with this? Any doubt? This is the provision which we discussed in the class, right? So, transportation of the passengers by the motor vehicle, motor cab, maxi cab or omnibus through e-commerce operator, who is liable for payment of GST? E-commerce operator is liable, right? Now, the new amendment it is where the omnibus services is provided by the company, that is these peoples are the supplier, recipient. Suppose in case of omnibus, services supplied through e-commerce operator, services supplied through e-commerce operator. What is the nature of service? Omnibus. Omnibus services provided through e-commerce operator. Who is liable for payment of GST? E-commerce operator is liable. Right? Now, except such services provided by the company through ECO. In this situation, what will happen? In this situation, forward charge mechanism, so that company is liable, right? Not ECO. This is the new provision. That's it. It is an amendment only in relating to the omnibus, where omnibus services supplied through e-commerce operator by the company other than company. In case of other than company, ECO is liable. In case of omnibus services provided by the company through e-commerce operator, forward charge mechanism applicable, company is liable for payment of GST, but not the e-commerce operator. Are you clear with this? Right. First of all, the general provision, transportation of the passengers, motor vehicle, motorcycle, maxi cab, including omnibus. These services are provided through e-commerce operator. E-commerce operator is liable for payment of GST. Now, what is an amendment in relating to the omnibus? In relating to the omnibus, still such omnibus services supplied through e-commerce operator, ECO is liable, provided except such services are provided by the company through ECO, that is omnibus services provided by the company, that is where the supplier is a company, forward charge mechanism applicable, right? Suppose, let me give a clarity about it. Supplier, nature of service, person liable to pay GST. Suppose situation number 1, motorcycle, maxi cab, next motor vehicle, right? Nature of service, transportation of passengers. Through e-commerce operator. Then who is liable for payment of GST? E-commerce operator only, right? Suppose the second situation, omnibus. The owner of the omnibus, let us assume individual, right? Now, transportation passenger services through e-commerce operator. Even in this situation, person liable for payment of GST is e-commerce operator. And the third situation where omnibus services provided by the company is that company through e-commerce operator, through e-commerce operator. That is simply we can say that transportation of the passenger services through e-commerce operator. In such a situation, who is liable for payment of GST? Supplier, being company, right? This is an amendment. That's it. You can understand the difference between the second and third point. In the second point, omnibus, transportation of the passenger services through e-commerce operator. E-commerce operator is liable for payment of GST. But where omnibus services provided by the company through e-commerce operator, what will happen? The supplier, company is liable for payment of GST. In this situation, 9 subsection 5 not applicable. Are you clear with this? Done. Good. So, any other motor vehicle except omnibus service provided by the company, right? So, with effective from 20th October 2023. And the next one, amendment in the list of the notified services taxes on which is payable under reverse charge by the recipient. Okay, what is the next amendment? Yeah, done. Services provided by CGSG or local authority. Services provided by CGSG or local authority. In such a situation, what will happen? Okay. The next nature of services, services supplied by the central government or state government or union territory or local authority to a business entity, excluding renting of immovable property and services specified below. For these services, forward charge mechanism. Other than these services, reverse charge mechanism. And one more thing, the renting of immovable property, no need to learn in the entry number 5. Reason, there is a separate entry for renting of immovable property, that is entry number 5A, right? Suppose let me give a flow chart on it. Now the second amendment in the chapter of, third amendment in the charge of GST. Services supplied by CG, SG or local authority to a business entity located in taxable territory. Business entity located in taxable territory. Then what will happen? Reverse charge mechanism applicable. Recipient is liable for payment of GST. Right? Now, in this provision, there is a small amendment. Service provided by CG, SG or local authority to business entity plus located in taxable territory. If your answer is no, suppose if your answer is no, that is recipient is not a business entity. When the recipient is not a business entity, to the extent possible, we have to ensure whether these services are PAT services or other than PAT, right? Suppose in case of the PAT services, what will happen? Forward charge mechanism. In case of other than PAT services, to the extent possible, those are exempt, subject to section 11. Sir, what is the meaning of the PAT services? P means postal services, Department of the Post. A, aircraft and vessel services. Services provided to the aircraft and vessels within the port or outside the port precincts. Next, T concern transportation of the passengers or goods. These three services are provided by CG, SG or local authority, forward charge mechanism applicable. And if these three services are provided to other than business entity, those are exempted. Those are exempted subject to section 11. Suppose where the recipient is a business entity, where the recipient is business entity located in taxable territory, then again you have to ensure, is service in the nature of PAT, that is postal, aircraft or vessel services to the aircraft or vessel services within the precincts or outside the precincts of the port or airport. And next T concern, transportation of the goods or passengers. Transportation of goods or passenger. Now, in case of these three services, what will happen? Same forward charge mechanism. Same forward charge mechanism. Even though recipient is a business entity located in taxable territory and the business entity received these type of the services. Suppose where a company registered under GST and as well as it is a business entity located in taxable territory. Suppose such company receiving postal department services. Supplier is the postal department and the company is recipient, still forward charge mechanism. Even the recipient is a business entity. Suppose on behalf of the company, director booking a bus ticket or train ticket, right? Transportation of the goods or passenger. Recipient might be a business entity. Services provided by CGSGR local authority, right? And recipient also be business entity. And subject to condition, if such business entity receiving these three type of the services, still forward charge mechanism. If your answer is no, that means service provided by CG, SG or local authority to business entity located in taxable territory other than these three services, then what will happen? Reverse charge mechanism applicable. Other than these three services, reverse charge mechanism applicable. Suppose example, spectrum services, spectrum license. Suppose telecommunication authority, TRAI, Telephone Regulatory Authority of India. Suppose they are conducting an auction for 5G or 6G services. Now, Jio participated, Jio getting services from the central government, that is nothing but satellite services. If the telecommunication company want to provide telecommunication services, suppose internet, telecalling, etc. For all these services, satellite services are required. Such satellite support service is given by the government. Now, in this situation, supplier is the government and recipient might be Jio or Airtel. In such a situation, what will happen? Service provided by CGSG or local authority, is it? And recipient is a business entity located in taxable territory, yes. And those services are not covered in these three. Spectrum services, spectrum license, not covered in PAT. Then what will happen? Reverse charge mechanism, recipient, business entity is liable for payment of GST. Are you clear up to this part? Any doubt? Now the new amendment it is, apart from the postal, if these services are provided by railway, if these services are provided, where services provided by CG, SG or local authority, right, and to a business entity located in taxable territory, where the railway also providing services, in relating to such services, forward charge mechanism applicable. See here, services provided by the Department of the Post or Ministry of Railways. What will happen? Actually, services provided by CG, SG or local authority, reverse charge mechanism has to be applicable. But entity excluding, in relating to these three people, reverse charge mechanism not applicable. What are those things? What are those three things? Number one, Department of the Post, aircraft or vessel services, transportation of the goods or passengers. Right? Are you clear? In the first area, apart from the service of the Department of the Post, the Ministry of the Railway services also be covered. So, where an Indian Railway providing services, to the business entity, services by the Department of the Post, services by the Ministry of Railway, that is Indian Railway, goods, wagons or services are there, and suppose different type of the services might be Ministry of the Railway giving an opportunity to do the business. Suppose they are conducting different type of the stalls, restaurants, etc. In such a situation, there may be a chance forward charge mechanism applicable. Are you clear? So services provided by the railway department also forward charge mechanism. That is a new amendment. And in the second area, services supplied by the central government, state government, union territory or local authority, and the nature of service is renting of immovable property. What will happen? If the recipient is registered person, reverse charge mechanism applicable, recipient is liable for payment of GST. Suppose where the railway, Ministry of the Railway, suppose they are making available track on rental basis to the registered persons, or the railway department making available their property on rental basis to the business people, reverse charge mechanism not applicable. See here, that is entry number 5A. Are you clear? First entry number 5 concern, simple provision where the services provided by CGSD or local authority to business entity located in taxable territory. In case of other than these three services, reverse charge mechanism. Now, one more also be added here, services provided by the railway, forward charge mechanism applicable, right? And the next one, renting of immovable property, renting of immovable property. Renting of immovable property. So renting of immovable property, services provided by CG, SG or local authority. Provided by CG, SG or local authority. And second side by railway department. By railway department. To registered person located in taxable territory. What will happen? Reverse charge mechanism applicable. What is the provision? Reverse charge mechanism applicable. Renting of immovable property services provided by CG, SG or local authority. Suppose if you observe the market area, such market area shops are belonging to the local authority, municipality, right? They will make available such shops or building on rental basis to the small business people. Suppose such small business person is a registered person, what will happen? Reverse charge mechanism applicable, recipient is liable for payment of GST, right? Suppose where such renting of immovable property services are provided by railway department to registered person located in taxable territory. What will happen? Forward charge mechanism. Here forward charge mechanism. Reason, see here, services supplied by the central, state, union territory, renting of immovable property. What is the nature of service? Renting of immovable property to a person registered under the CGST Act. Then reverse charge mechanism applicable, recipient is liable for payment of GST, but here excluding, what is that? Excluding the Ministry of Railway. So where Ministry of the Railway making available immovable property on rental basis, even though recipient is a registered person, reverse charge mechanism not applicable, forward charge mechanism only. Are you clear with this? Right? And again the same provisions we will discuss in the exemption chapter also, but till the time reverse charge mechanism, ECO, reverse charge mechanism and electronic commerce operator provisions we discussed elaborately. Now let we recapture. Charge of GST. First one, where a director providing services to the company or body corporate, reverse charge mechanism applicable. where a director providing services other than in a director, other than in director capacity, reverse charge mechanism not applicable. And the next one, omnibus services, where the omnibus services supplied by a company through e-commerce operator. In such a situation, e-commerce operator not liable for payment of GST. Supplier, company is liable for payment of GST. And the next one, services provided by CGSG local authority to the business entity located in taxable territory. Actually, reverse charge mechanism applicable, recipient is liable. But for these three services, RCM not applicable. PAT services, Department of the Post, aircraft or vessel services, transportation of the goods or passengers. And apart from these three things, services provided by the Ministry of Railway also forward charge mechanism. And the next, renting of immovable property provision concern. Services provided by CGSG or local authority. Nature of services is renting of immovable property to a registered person located in taxable territory. RCM applicable, recipient is liable. Suppose where Ministry of Railway making available immovable property on rental basis, RCM not applicable. RCM not applicable. Are you clear? So that in such a manner we completed the chapter of charge of GST. Right? Please pause the video and go through once.